Hey everyone, how's it going? Tekno here, and I hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys another Warframe video, but this time it's not going to be a guide. This time it's going to be on the quality of life updates and hotfixes most recently made to the Plains of Eidolon. Since the Plains of Eidolon patch, there's been quite a number of hotfixes to fix several things like crashes and bugs, but yesterday there was two hotfixes in the same day. Both were pretty substantial and they changed a few mechanics in the game, and I felt like it was important to go over it. In this video there's going to be a lot of information that I feel is very useful to the majority of people, and so that's why I'm making a video on it. It can be kind of hard to find the patch notes if you're not used to navigating the forums. So in this video I'll be condensing that down into a short overview of a few systems that they changed, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. If this is helpful, make sure to leave a like so I know that you guys do like this type of video, and without further ado, we'll get into the content. So welcome everyone back to my spaceship. This is the first of three things that I did want to talk about, with the first being crafting, the second being combat, and the third being reward changes. All separate quality of life changes that I think are all pretty important, and I'm just going to go over them briefly so that you guys know what to look for. So here we are at my foundry, and in this first part I did show you guys before in my previous video how to make the Archwing launcher segment as well as the research. Nothing has changed here, so don't worry about that. But what they did change was the Archwing launcher itself. So if we scroll down here in the gear section, you can see the 50 times Archwing launcher has been changed substantially. So there was quite an uproar about the materials required to make this blueprint, and I think that it was just in their uproar, but they did change it a lot, so now hopefully everyone is happy with the changes. They changed it from 100 iridite, down to 50. 150 fish oil down to 50, and the grok jewel stayed the same, with the circuits being reduced from 1200 down to 600. On top of that, they also reduced the craft time from 1 hour to 30 minutes. So all those changes were really substantial. They made crafting the Archwing launcher much more feasible for the majority of players, so now everyone gets to enjoy the great experience of flying around on the Plains of Eidolon. I think this is a great change, and just one of the few things that this patch really fleshed out. Now on top of that, we'll go over and look at Gara real quick. So this is just a change that I thought a lot of people didn't really notice because not a lot of people have Gara yet. She is fairly easy to get if you get lucky in the bounties, but on top of that you needed some kuva to craft her. So before the patch you did need kuva. I think it was about 600 kuva, and I think they quickly realized that not every player could get kuva. So what they did was they changed it to Oricon cells like nearly every other Warframe, and they made it so it's 3 Oricon cells. Really makes sense. That's something they should have picked on beforehand, but I'm really glad that they were able to find it so that it can be like nearly every other Warframe where all you need is some Oricon cells. So that's another great change. Now we're going to head over and look at a couple of the vendors where a few more crafting changes were introduced in the newest hotfix. Hey everyone, welcome to Cetus. So now that we're done with the foundry stuff, I'll show you guys a couple of changes they made to two of the vendors here that I think would help a lot as far as farming goes. So here we're at the first one, Fisher High Look. If we go and browse her wares, nothing here actually changed. But I did want to mention that if you are farming fish, you guys are probably going to be really happy about this because now they made it so resource boosters actually work on fishing. So if you are fishing and with a resource booster, expect to get a lot more fish than normal. And so if you are farming different parts and materials to make stuff, or if your main source of income for standing is from fishing, you guys can rejoice because now you should be getting a lot more when you're running a booster. Now the second one we're going to look at is Old Man Simbot. So his wares actually did change. If you can see here, the gem blueprints did change. So his common blueprints now give you 10 per blueprint. The Star Crimson, the rare blueprint, now gives you 6. And these last two Eidolon level blueprints now give you 3. So this simply saves people a lot of standing, so you don't have to get nearly as much standing in order to acquire these rare blueprints in order to make more rare items. So it's simply something to improve the quality of life to help you guys not have to farm so much standing. Now that we're done with the crafting section, I'm going to head over and talk to you guys about the changes they made for combat. So there were only a couple of combat changes here, but I did want to go over them because I felt like they were pretty important. So the first one I wanted to talk about were the Tusk Mortars, or the Tusk Mortar Bombers. So if you've played at all in the Plains recently, then you've definitely run into this unit and probably wondered the same thing as me, as why do these enemies take forever to die? So they have already reduced the armor of them once in a hotfix, but again in this most recent hotfix they reduced their armor yet again. On top of that, they also reduced the amount of damage that they did so that they're more on par with the other units. This just makes sense because this unit was clearly overpowered compared to all of the other units, and now they all seem like they're more level. Another change that they made was how auras work on the Terra list. So if you've done any Terra list farming, then there actually was a kind of a bug or something that wasn't really intended where you could stack a lot of health reducing auras in a group if you had a pre-made group, and this would make it substantially easier to fight off the Terra list, and so they would have a lot less health than they were meant to have. This was a bug as well as a balancing thing, so now auras do not work on Terra lists whatsoever. A third thing they fixed was in the kill enemies portion of the mission where you had to kill all pinged enemies. Now they made it so that the Grineer dropships aren't covered in that. This isn't a big deal for any of the lower level missions, but for level 5 missions, the level 55 Grineer dropships do have a substantial amount of health, making them somewhat of a pain to try and fight, so I'm really glad they went through and changed that. And the last thing is actually a bug fix. So when you try to use Snow Globe at night, there was a texture bug fix, pretty much making it nearly impossible to see through the Snow Globe, which made Frost nearly impossible to play if you are using a Snow Globe at all, which of course most people are because it is one of his most powerful abilities. So that was a quick bug fix I wanted to go through, because again, I think a lot of people play Frost, especially since he was recently free, and so that's a quick, really nice quality of life bug fix. Now, since this is over, I'm going to head over and tell you guys the rest about the reward quality of life changes. So that's about it for the combat reward quality of life changes. Now we're going to move on to the reward quality of life changes, which I think most people are looking forward to. And if you guys want to stick around to the end, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion where I ask you guys kind of what you thought about the hot fixes thus far and what you think they can improve. But let's get into the reward changes. Here we are at Konzu. So when you talk to Konzu and look at bounties, you'll see not too much has changed on the right side as far as possible rewards, but something that has changed substantially is the Austrian rewards. So the Austrian standing, you do get a substantial amount more. Actually, they said they doubled it. So before you'd get roughly 300 from a tier 1 and 1600 from a tier 5, and so they have just about doubled all of the standing rewards from each and every mission. The possible rewards have stayed the same for the most part, except for tier 5 rewards. What they did was they removed a couple of the previous ones and replaced it with void traces. Now I'll tell you my opinions on that later, but that is the change that they made. That's good for a few reasons, making it so that you don't have to farm nearly as much bounties to get the standing that you need. And so now we're going to look at the Quill's standing. And this one I kind of feel like I want to say I told you guys so. If you watch my other video you know what I'm talking about. But when we talk to Quill Onko, they actually increased the amount that you get from the intact Sentinel Core and the exceptional Sentinel Core by 4 times actually. They didn't touch the Flawless Sentient Core, which is okay because those are incredibly rare. So the ones that you do get the most, these first two, they made it 4 times easier to get Reputation, which obviously I'm not farming Reputation with them right now, but when I do, it'll be substantially easier and make it better for anyone that is going after improving their amps. So that is a really good change, and I'm really glad they made it. Again, all of these changes seem like they're warranted, and a lot of the community were asking for this. But one last thing I want to talk about for rewards is for incursions. Now if you don't know, incursions are randomly occurring events in the free roam version of the Plains of Eidolon, not the bounty version, and they would happen about every 6 minutes. What they did was they reduced it to make it so it happens every 5 minutes, making it so the world is a little more lively and there's random quests happening a little more often. And so with that out of the way, they also added a ton of hotfixes that included fixes for bugs and everything like that. So if you guys haven't had any black screens, any clipping, any bugs with mobs or quests, hopefully they have addressed that and fixed that. If not, you guys can check out all of the fixes in the comments below. I will leave in the description an entire list of the hotfixes, a link directly to that, so you guys can read through that if that's something you're interested in. Now, DE seems like they have been listening pretty well on the forums and on their social media, so if you have a problem that wasn't addressed, I'll suggest hitting them up, maybe DMing them somewhere, and hopefully getting a response from them about their status on your particular fix. So they seem to be really good about that, and I'm going to get into the last part where I do kind of want to discuss with you guys the hotfixes and where I think they can improve. So I mostly wanted to talk about the bounty rewards and how I think they could definitely improve on those. They did do the void trace change, but in my opinion there's 3 things that they should just straight up remove and replace with something else. And the first one being the relics, the credits, and the void traces that they just added. Actually, I think all 3 of those things you get in plenty of other places throughout the world, and you don't really need it to be supplemented here in the Plains. What I would like to see, which is kind of a suggestion that I just had thought of recently, was maybe to get more drops from the Plains itself. So maybe get a resource booster that only works in the Plains, or actually just getting straight up fish resources, or maybe blueprints from the vendors, gems that are already cut, or maybe even crazy enough like entire Zal parts for extremely rare bounty rewards. Those are just some things I was thinking about. I thought those would all be really cool rewards, and instead of saying, oh man, that sucks, I just got credits, I would say, oh, that's so sick, I just got some gems I can now use to make the Zal parts that I wanted. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it. And I was also thinking of one other thing that I think they could improve on, which was fishing. So I've done quite a bit of fishing, and I feel like they could be improved on to be more like mining. So what I'm saying is that the fish would appear beforehand. So now for mining, you go around and you find an ore just out in the wild, and you can run up and mine it. But for the fishing, you have to pull out your fishing spear and wait for around 30 seconds to a minute in my experience before fish actually start showing up. And I feel like if you made fishing more like mining, where the fish showed up beforehand, a lot more people would be inclined to start fishing on the spot as soon as they see the fish. So that's just something I was thinking about again. This is just my ideas. I'm one person. I would actually really like to hear what you guys think about my suggestions, or if you guys have suggestions of your own, please throw them down in the comment box. I read every single comment that you guys put, and I'm really glad that you guys have been commenting as much as you have. So that is about it for this video. I really hope this helped you guys out. If it did, again, please leave a like and subscribe. I do bring out videos pretty often, all of them in hopes that they do help someone. So I really do hope you guys like this video and have a great day. I'll see you all next time.